You are in sales. How do I know that? Because everyone is in sales. Yes, there are sales professionals, people who make their living selling products and services, and there are people who instruct them. I'm a sales trainer. However, a lawyer has to be able to sell the jury. A leader has to be able to sell their direct reports. A manager has to be able to sell their ideas and their concepts to the people that they influence. Parents have to sell their children. Doctors have to sell their patients. Everyone is in sales. In this video, we're going to look at some of the basics, some of the essential things that you need to know in order to sell yourself even better, to sell your ideas to others, and to convince people that you have something of value for them. You know you've already sold yourself before. That's how you have the position that you have right now. But let's put some science behind it. Sometimes you tried to sell your ideas and it worked very well. Other times it didn't work so well. Let's see if we can figure out why.
There are two types of people in the world, those who know they're in sales and those who don't. What have you sold already? What have you sold recently? You know that you're in sales because you've had to sell yourself many times. The position that you occupy now in your profession, the friends that you have, your spouse or significant others, you had to sell yourself for those people to be in your life. But you've also had to sell your ideas. You had an idea, you had a concept that you wanted to get across, or you had something that you wanted to do, a project or a trip, and you had to sell that to other people. Sometimes you were successful and then sometimes you were not. Have you ever wondered what made the difference? It was your ability to sell that makes the difference in your career, in having your ideas embraced, in your personal life. It's your ability to sell, and everyone has to sell from time to time. And a question for you is, are you checking all the boxes, and do you even know what boxes to check? This video focuses on your role in sales, even if you're not a sales professional, or if you are a sales professional. Some of the ideas here will be reminders for you. Let's begin with this. What is sales? Pause the video for a moment and write down your definition of sales. If somebody said, I'm thinking about a career change and someone suggested I should go into sales, what is sales? So pause the video, write down your answer, and then start the video again. Lee Iacocca was the CEO of Chrysler during the turnaround. He was also a senior executive at Ford and one of the most interesting leaders I've ever studied. One of the things he said was, if you cannot reduce it to one sentence, you don't know what it is. So if you wanted some of his attention, you would step in his office, give your one sentence. If he nodded, you would sit down and talk. If not, you would leave. Well, let's go one level deeper. Could you reduce your definition of sales to 7 words or less? 7 words or less. Now, this is not just for your definition of sales. This is for a lot of different answers that people are looking for from you. There's a concept in sales which is state and elaborate. It also works in leadership. State and elaborate. State your message and then elaborate if necessary. So can you reduce your definition to 7 words or less? Well, obviously I've done it, and here's the definition that I use. Sales is a scientific persuasion process. All 3 words are important. A scientific persuasion process. Sales is not an art. You'll hear people say, he'll make a great salesperson, he's got the gift of gab. Well, the gift of gab in today's world will not make you succeed in sales. It'll probably cause you not to. It's the ability to probe, to ask questions. There is a scientific approach. It's like a recipe. It's like a formula. The method that I teach is called plush selling, P-L-U-S-H. There are 5 principles behind a successful value-added sale. Value-added selling is selling around the price objection. And it works like a recipe. It works like a formula. First you do the P, then you do the L. If you haven't done the P, the L is not going to be possible. If you'd like to see more of this, you can go to my e-learning site, which is chuckreeves.online. It's a scientific persuasion process. We are persuading people to do something. And there are different ways of persuading. You can persuade out of fear, you can persuade with humor, but we're trying to persuade someone scientifically, and therefore we follow a process.
Would you help me by clicking the subscribe button below? If you do, you'll become rich, famous, and successful in just a matter of weeks. Why can't I say that? Well, it could happen. They could, win the lottery or something, but would you click the button anyway, please?
Think about golf for a minute. If a golfer hits a hole-in-one, that is, from the tee to the hole, they hit the ball one time and it goes in the hole, can they do it again? Well, theoretically, of course they can. If they can do it once, they can do it many times. Why don't they? It's unlikely they will hit a second hole-in-one because of the variables. And this is why people have trouble selling. There's no one-size-fits-all. There's no cookie-cutter approach to sales. Every sales call is different. Every person is different. Every idea that you have is different. And every person that you want to sell it to is also different. So you have to take a different approach using the scientific principles. What are all the variables in a hole-in-one? Well, if they wanted to do it again, they would have to tee the ball up exactly the way they did it the first time and stand exactly the same distance away from it. Every muscle in their body would have to be the same. Their skeletal system would have to be the same so that they would have the exact same stance. And then everything about the swing, from the backswing to the follow-through, would have to be the same. In other words, everything they can control or could control has to be exactly the same. Well, what about wind, humidity, and temperature? Well, those are things they cannot control, but they are variables that will impact the success of the hit. Well, if there's that many variables in a golf swing, how many variables are there in a sales call? Many, many more, because it's a human-to-human interaction. So when we look at how many variables you will want to learn to address, it's based on whether you want to be a professional or an amateur. A professional golfer has to know everything there is to know about golf, and a professional salesperson needs to know all they can about sales. And so they spend their lives learning. They read, they study, they network, they go to seminars. You just want the basics so that you can sell the same way you probably play golf on the weekends if you're a golfer. One of the basics in golf is keep your eye on the ball. That's one of the fundamentals. Well, what would a fundamental or a basic principle be in sales? Why is it in the customer's best interest that they? Whenever I want to sell anything to anyone, I begin with, why is it in my customer's best interest that they? So if I want them to buy my product, why is it in their best interest they buy my product? If I want them to go on vacation with me, why is it in their best interest they go on vacation with me? Whatever I want them to do, I start with, why is it in their best interest? Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So instead of talking about the outcome, about your product, about the vacation, instead of talking about what you want them to do, build a relationship first. You'll hear the term relationship selling. Well, all selling is relationship selling because companies don't do business with companies, people do business with people. So instead of talking about how smart you are and how much you know about your product, how much you know about your service, your company, instead talk about their favorite topic, which is what? Them. The person at the table who knows the most about the other person's business wins. So you want to know more about them than they know about you. The single most important function of sales is to teach. If you listen to the video or watch the video about using YouTube as a training tool, you'll know that you cannot teach someone something that they already know or they think they know or they do not want to know. But remember this, when the customer knows the right thing to do, the customer will do the right thing. When the customer knows the right thing to do, the customer will do the right thing. So we teach them based on what the right thing is to do. Begin now. Begin now, learn the rules of selling, basic sales rules, and that's what the Chuckisms primarily focus on. Learn the basics, just the ABCs, such as the one we just covered, and we'll cover more as more Chuckisms are produced. Surround yourself with like-minded people. Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, we think, said one time, "In a multitude of counselors there is safety." Don't try to do it all on your own. Surround yourself with people that will give you good counsel, will give you good ideas. Then, do you have the right tools? Is it time for you to upgrade? Maybe your apparel, maybe your computer systems, maybe your software. Are you teaching and learning? One of the best ways to learn is to teach. Chuckism number 12 explains that. Are you able and willing to play the tough shots? Anybody can succeed when things are easy, when it's simple, but we hone our skills and become professionals when we're able to play out of the rough in golf, but out of the tough situations that we find ourselves in. And this is the big one that many sales professionals miss over time, and that is pre-call planning. Plan each shot. Don't wing it. Think through what the encounter is going to be. Think through what your sales call is going to be about. Think through who the other individual is. Give it some thought before you try to sell. Every sales call is an audition for the next one. Every sales call is an audition for the next one, so keep that in mind as well. There are two prepositions you'll want to think about. Here's another basic. There are two prepositions you want to think about. When you're selling to your customer, or it's a friend or whoever else, are you doing something to them, or are you doing something for them? This is huge. If you think you're doing something to them, you will communicate that subliminally. Your choice of words, intonation, and your voice, something about the way you communicate will let them know this is not really for you as much as it is for me. But there are times when we want them to do something for us. So take two out of your vocabulary and focus every sales encounter on what you can do for the individual. There are two types of sales. One is something you want to do for them, and another is something that you want them to do for you, and that's okay. Let's look at how those sales calls play out. When you're selling something that would be for them, pre-call planning is essential. Think through why it would be a benefit to them and why they would want to do it. Use questions and not statements. The more questions you use, the more successful you're going to be in sales. The reason I say that a person with the gift of gab doesn't succeed in sales is they're doing too much talking and not enough listening. The human mind cannot not respond to a question, so when you ask a question, you're going to get some information from the other person. Identify all of the benefits you can think of. How would this benefit them? And then quantify the benefits. What would those benefits be worth to them? Can you put some numbers on it? Then ask for agreement. You might ask for agreement multiple times while you're talking to them. You may know this as closing the sale. I don't like the idea of closing the sale. It sounds intimidating, but instead, ask for an agreement. What if you're asking someone to help you, to do something for you? Again, pre-call planning. Again, use questions and not statements. And then, use the magic four-letter word, the most powerful word in the English language, the word help. Could you help me understand? Could you help me create so-and-so? Could you help me help someone else? Help is the most powerful word in the English language. It will stop men in Armani suits on the streets of Manhattan when it's snowing. It's amazing how this word works. You see, most people, unless they're a psychopath, will respond positively to the word help. If you ask, could you help me? Many people will say yes. More will say yes if I can, but you want to use the word help when you are selling something that is for you. Then thank them.
Would you help me by clicking the like button below? It's what? The like button. Oh, that makes more sense, doesn't it? Explains some things. Would you click the like button below? Thank you.
Okay, here's a summary. What is this all about? First of all, everyone is selling something. I'm selling something right now. Everyone is selling something. Everyone sells more often than they realize, even professional salespeople. When you're trying to coach someone, when you're trying to get one of your children or a friend to do something, that's selling. No product or service will sell itself. Every product or service has to be sold. The best alternative is not always the one that is selected. Chuckism number 52 explains that, and there'll be a video on that in the future. Here are some discussion questions you can use in your DIY in-house sales training. You can pause the video and take a screenshot of this or come back to this later, but I want to give you questions that will stimulate the kind of conversation inside your organization that will help you be more successful. Remember, your organization can be your company, of course, but it could be your small group. It could be your garden club. It could be your family. It could be any group of people that have a common interest in trying to achieve some particular purpose.
So everyone is selling something, and you have many opportunities to sell, probably more than you realize. You have greater influence over people when you can sell them on your ideas and your concepts. It's very important that you continue to teach others while you continue to learn, and being able to sell your ideas, sell yourself, is going to be essential in taking your success to the next level. Teach others.